that. I'm just gonna set it here, so if you wanted to store it on top of the pile, that would be great. Okay, so one of the things that I wanted to start out with today before we get into current events is we did the perspective article. Everybody did really, really well on the next one. Only a couple of points off on it, on a couple cases. Typically, remember, you want to try to answer that question number 5. Remember, you want to answer that, and in the future, as I will be tougher and tougher on the grading on these as we go forward, because I'm looking at you learning to think more and more on this. So what you could get as a 25 at this point will not be the same as what it'll take to get a 25 on the next, or on the last one at the end of the year. So just so you know that. One of the things that on the last question, number 6, where you're to give a reference to something that happened in history, make sure you explain how you think it is similar to what happened in history. What I'm looking for, there's no right or wrong answer. I'm just trying to get you to think about the question. Okay, just getting you thinking about it. Just like with the one question on what is the person's worldview. There's no real true answer to that question either. I'm looking to see that you are thinking about the article instead of just answering, just blindly reading stuff. That's what we want to eliminate, is everything that you read, somebody's probably trying to persuade you to view something. In fact, it was interesting, over the weekend I heard an article, or I heard a podcast, and they were talking about the dropping of the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and whether America was bad for that or whether America was okay with that. Was America a good country? Was America a bad country? And in the beginning of it, he says, well, I'm not trying to promote an agenda. And it's like, yeah, really you are. You're presenting the facts, but what you're doing is presenting the facts in a way that maybe a lot of people haven't heard. So you're making people reconsider maybe their opinion on things. And that is, in essence, in a type of agenda. On this article, the how to respond to the LGBT, I'm sure that I think they've added a couple more initials at the end of that now, community. How should we as Christians respond to it?
Just as much as we respond to any other sin.
Okay. How do we respond to other sins? Let's say alcohol. How do we respond to alcohol? I didn't give somebody, actually inadvertently give a Lena to somebody today. Oh, yes, I did. Oh, no, that's that one's yours. This one, it's stuck to the back of it.
Oh.
There's yours.
Oh, she typed it.
Yes.
That was like the answer.
Yeah. So one of the things that one of the things I wanted to get you guys thinking about is, how do we respond as Christians to all these things? Yes.
Well, something my pastor said a while ago, not a while, but just in one of his sermons, was we can't just say that it's bad or that we're against it. We have to respond in love, but still in truth. So I don't know if it has, but yeah, just still say that we love them, but still spread the truth in a loving way. Not just that not saying that we hate them or anything. We just don't agree. I don't know.
So how do you approach somebody who may not believe in God, who doesn't believe in the Bible, how would you approach them and say that being gay, being a lesbian would be wrong? I mean, if they don't believe in God, they don't believe in the Bible, then you really can't use the Bible as a reference. So how as Christians do we then explain that it's wrong? Because really, do we have an answer in that case? Yes?
I'd say you wait for them to start asking you questions and you just answer in truth.
That's a good point.
But should you be there? Well, should you be friends with them?
Should you be friends with it? Is being friends with somebody condoning their lifestyle?
Not necessarily. I mean, it depends, because if you think that, like let's say you take like all of your non-believer friends that aren't even lesbian or gay or anything like that, and like they're pretty much the same thing as a lesbian or gay that are non-believers. So it's the same thing. This is just classifying them as a certain group.
So you bring up a good point. How do you deal with somebody who is not gay, not a lesbian, but a friend of yours who scores as many women as he possibly can in a period of 3 or 4 months? You know, goes out on a date with this girl 1 week, next girl this week. It's always bragging about his exploits. Or how about somebody who is addicted to heroin? How do we explain the gospel and how do we compare these sins? Because when we look at, a lot of times, the perception from the Christian community is heroin, bad drug, people need help. When we look at homosexuality, we look at lesbian, we look at transgender, immediately is in your face, they're wrong, they're bad, and we have to stop them. Now, some of that is because the gay and lesbian community, there is no heroin community out there going, we want equal rights. But there is a gay and lesbian community out there that is demanding equal rights. They're demanding that a Christian business make a cake for them. What would you do in that instance?
I wouldn't even do
I
it.
mean,
Well, this is okay.
Go ahead, Michaela. This is why we do this part. We gotta want you guys thinking.
I feel like if someone were to turn it down, like, okay, got a lot of thoughts on this.
Okay, no, I'm glad. I am so glad.
So, okay, going back to like how we have religious freedom.
Correct.
Like, okay, why is it okay for, you know, like, I don't know, let's just say like Muslims and stuff to, like, I don't know, we're gonna say this. If you look at how Christians are being treated, like, you don't see people bashing Muslims because that's wrong. Like, you don't see that, but you see them doing it with Christians. And so that's a type of persecution.
Yes.
But then they're not letting us, you know, like pastors be like, we're not gonna, you know, marry you guys or whatever, because that's not what I believe. But if say a Muslim were to do that, like, they'd be like, okay, that's fine, like that's part of your religion, but because we're Christians, like, it's not okay. And so I don't know, I don't think people realize how.
No, they don't. They don't understand, one, the double standard that we face in Christianity. Yes.
so if all sin is equal and being gay, in our opinion, is sin, then what is the difference between us marrying a gay couple versus a non-believer sinner couple?
That is a good point. And a lot of churches will not marry somebody who's not a member of their church.
Now, where does it cross the line where it begins where you're starting to judge people and where they're not? Like,
So, what does the Bible say about judging?
that God's the ultimate judge.
God's the ultimate judge. But what else does it say about? What is, if we judge what's to happen, what can happen to us?
Will be judged.
Will be judged. So does that mean, though, that then I can't say, see, some people take that as meaning, well, then I can't say that homosexuality is wrong. I can't say being a drunk is wrong. I can't say any of these things are wrong. But is that really what the verse says? It really, the real interpretation from my perspective is don't condemn. So what you're saying is you can't say, you cannot say, you go to hell because you do this. No, we're supposed to be different. See, we as Christians sometimes get so caught up in the actual sin that we forget about the person's heart. And the heart is where we need to focus. So when we deal with somebody who has a sin, heroin, why are people addicted to heroin? Because one, either they got addicted to some drug beforehand. A lot of it is, there's a lot of going around of people getting addicted to the painkillers, and then they don't get off of them properly, and that's a medical problem, that our medical industry is not helping people get off these drugs well. And so it leads them to going and stealing pills, getting more pills, and then finally, I've seen cases where it leads them to heroin. Because they get that same kind of high out of heroin that they were getting out of the painkillers. So you have that, and we see it as a disease, but we also see some of these cases, they get stuck in drugs because they have heart issues, in the sense of they are looking for something to fill them with joy and peace. Who is the only person that can do that? Right. So really what they're trying to do is fulfill that need, that want of union with God that we're supposed to get from Jesus Christ with drugs. Is it not true then probably for homosexuality? For drunkenness? For somebody who is promiscuous and regular in heterosexual relationships? They're trying to fulfill the hole that's in their heart and their soul that they want with this relationship with God that they're not getting. And that's how I think we need to fill and talk to people, is when we see somebody who is in a homosexual relationship and going, well, I'm gay. Really? Are you happy? Is that what feels? That's why Christ tells us to show joy to the world. It's because we're supposed to be different. And if we're not showing joy and we're out there, I could bring up the slides, the pictures, where Christians running around holding up signs saying, God hates fags. Does he really? For God so loved the world that he sent his one and only begotten Son, so that only believers would not perish? What's it saying? So that everyone who believes in him will not perish. It means everybody. He wants everybody. He's not segmenting this off, saying, well, I'm only going to allow this person to go. Oh, well. And I don't see where it says that homosexuality is the ultimate sin. In Catholicism, there's like major sins. You can never return from that. And then there are minor sins and major sins. No, all sin is equal. We're all going to die outside of Jesus Christ. And that's why it's a heart issue. That's why I wanted you guys to read this article, because I think we need, as a community, as Christians, to start thinking differently about how we evangelize a lost world, because we are in a post-Christian world. As you brought out in your discussion, as Muslims are not persecuted held to the same standards that we're holding Christians to with making a cake or taking pictures at a wedding. Yes?
Okay, well, I think part of the problem isn't like just that people don't like Christians. Part of the problem is that there are Christians that just like don't, they just say that the people are wrong, like not their lifestyle. Because the people, like, we're all sinners, you know?
Right.
So it's like, if you really want to communicate that God loves everyone, you can't say, because they're not going to come to Christ if you say you're a bad person because of the way you live, because we're all bad people. You have to be like, what you're doing is wrong, but like, we all do things that are wrong, but God still loves you.
Right.
And
that's exactly the inroad that you have to show. As Christians, we have to show that joy, that peace, that love of Christ to the world. And we have to find ways of doing that. And I think one of the first things that we need to do is we need, especially when we see other Christians treating somebody wrongly, we need to step in. We need to say, no, you're wrong. What right do you have to condemn this person for their lifestyle when you're not showing the love of Christ? Who's far worse? The person who doesn't know Christ, who's living in sin, or the person who supposedly knows Christ, but is outwardly not loving the world, loving the people in the world? I'm not saying be part of the world, but not loving the people in the world. We have to change our perspective. Now, how does that work in making friends? Because I would say that, go ahead.
Well, something my mom would tell me with friends who aren't gay or anything, but they just sort of seem a bit out there. It's like we can be friends, but we don't have to be best friends. I don't have to be yoked with them per se, but I can still be friends or friendly or.
Right, okay.
What is classified as a best friend compared to a friend?
Yeah, oh, that's a good question. I think that's a relative term.
wow, I'm just talking a lot today.
No, that's okay.
I think too, like, it's, has it been something that you really think that, like, okay, if you really think that the person can change, like, then yeah, you can be friends with them and like, because you're not being friends with them so you can change them, but if it's something like that you really feel like God can help them with, so like you have to pray about it and stuff, because you can't do anything, but it's really easy for them to like drag you down. But if you really are firm in Christ and stuff, like you can help them through it, and something that you can like help them understand like what they're doing is wrong, but in a loving way. So I don't know, I think in those situations where you don't know what to do, like you just have to pray about it, because if it's something that you should do, God will tell you, you know?
One of the things that we have to be careful of as Christians and being younger, especially you guys, is that are you influencing the person to become a Christian, or is that person influencing you and changing your lifestyle and your mind, so that you start thinking that, well, this person, my goodness, they're gay, but yet look at the good things they still do. How can I condemn them for this? How can I judge against homosexuality when this person, wow, they act better than some Christians I know? It should have nothing to do with it. Our foundation should be the Bible. Our foundation should be Christ and what is truth. Yes?
Can gays or lesbians be saved?
Yes, I do believe they can. Because when you become a Christian, do you lose your sin nature? Do you still sin? In fact, in some cases, I joke, just to make my point, that sometimes I feel like it's a checklist of things to do because of my sin nature. That, oh, okay, yeah, did that one today. Okay, check that one off my list today. Check that one off my list today. And that sin nature comes out. I love the book Mere Christianity, and it had a huge impact on how I view people who sin and how I view Christians who still struggle with sin. And in that book, he uses the example of a person as a Christian who still swears, and a person of a Christian who doesn't swear. Which one's the better Christian? Right. You can't judge them based on that. The guy who still swears, he grew up in a household where swearing was common. He grew up in the streets where swearing was common. In fact, they used it in every sentence. But now he swears very rarely. The other person who doesn't swear at all grew up in a great household. In fact, they were all Christians. Never swore ever in their household. Who's made a greater journey in their step of faith? The guy who still swears some, but went from this level to this level, or this person who never dealt with it? The person who changed. That's why we as Christians can't judge what people struggle with. For the homosexual, that's their sin that they may struggle with. That's we're all born with certain sins that we're all going to struggle with. Politicians, it tends to be lying. They can't tell the truth, whether they're Christian or not. Well, I shouldn't say that, but there's what's one thing that power leads to lying. Just watch the debate last night if you did. You see a lot of it. There are others who deal with sexual sins still as Christians. Divorce is up there in the Christian community. I know of Christians who were going to get married that decided, you know what? They're going to live together before they get married. That's not, according to biblical principles, that's not allowed. But yet that still happens. So in our Christian homes, we still struggle with these sins, and we need to be careful how we handle that. Yes?
You mentioned the example of two Christians who lived together before they were married. A great example of that is Bill and Hillary Clinton. He was Baptist and she was Methodist, but they lived together and bought a house together before they were married.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Of course, I wouldn't give them as an example at all of based on their lifestyle and how they live. But I mean, any Christian can fall. That's why we're supposed to have checks and balances in our government. But yeah, I mean that's a good example. There are other examples I've known of. I know here at the chapel, if you as a couple start living together, they won't marry you. They will absolutely refuse. In fact, they will say, we won't marry you until you take a time of separation. And then we will marry you. But you have to go into this time of separation because the focus needs to be on the relationship, not on the sex part. And what happens a lot of times is the focus becomes on the sexual part and not on the relationship part. So it makes it harder. So there's prime examples of how we all struggle with certain sins. And you know what those sins are, and I don't expect you to share them. But we all struggle with different sins, and we need to give grace to those who aren't. And as I constantly remind, even in my family, when and friends, that when a sinner does something that's a sin, somebody who's not a follower of Christ, I go, why are you surprised? They don't know Christ. What keeps you from doing a lot of your sins? It's not you, it's Christ. And we give the wrong credit to ourselves. And I always believe that the reason why God God doesn't take away our sin nature when we become believers, because he wants to keep reminding us who is our salvation through. It's through Christ. It is not through our own works. And I think if we started following our own works, and we didn't have a sin nature anymore, we'd get to the point where we would be just like Satan, Lucifer himself, where we'd have pride in our own actions and therefore would ultimately end up rebelling against God. So that's why Again, that's why I wanted you guys to read this article, because I wanted you guys to think outside the box. Now you have to, each instance is on your own. You have to weigh being friends with somebody based on that person and whether you think you can have an influence on somebody's life. And I think the minute you sense that that person has having a negative impact on your walk with Christ, you need to get out of that relationship. And I would go so far. I had a friend. He's a Christian, young man. I think he's like 21, maybe 21 now. But he had a girl he was dating all through high school, and he was like a freshman in college now, and we got on the subject of being unequally yoked, and I said, you cannot marry somebody that's not a believer. If you are a believer, you cannot knowingly marry somebody who's a non-believer. You can't. It's clearly biblical principle, because what it will do is it will destroy your faith. Secondly, typically, you will never get that other person to follow Christ. And it makes it hard. So I counseled this young man. I said, listen, your only course of action, because they were starting to get to the point where they were thinking marriage. I said, listen, you got to break it off. I hate to tell you this. You've been dating this girl for a long time, but you got to break it off. That was the toughest thing. I mean, that's tough to say to somebody when you've been dating for somebody and you believe you're in love with this person. Well, he came back a year later, and I'm not saying this is going to happen in every case, but he came back and he said, Mr. Sharkey, I broke it off with the girl. I did. I went home, I prayed about it, I thought about it, and I just determined you're right, and I broke it off with the girl. She was devastated. She could not believe that I would choose following God over her. But she started thinking about it. She goes, what? I know this guy loves me. What is different about this guy? Why he choose him? She became a believer. They're engaged now. They're going to be married. Now, I'm not going to say that that's going to happen in every case. But had he stayed the course, it could be it may never have affected her life. It may never have brought her to that point of realizing the importance. She's a baby. I know her personally. She's a baby Christian, but she is coming along. I mean, she is just progressing in her relationship with God so quick. It is amazing. They are like the perfect, I would say, almost the perfect couple. They balance each other out so well in what they need. He is exactly what she needs, and she is what he needs in there. And don't get me started. I do not believe that there's a such thing as a soulmate. There is no such thing. Girls, that you get stuck in this. I know. I hear it. Oh, he's my soulmate. Bull crap. He is not. He's a guy. He doesn't care about anything but sex. That's my. If you think I'm wrong, trust me, I'm not. I'm 48. You're going to be 49 soon. I know. I've counseled enough boys and stuff. I know where their mind's at most of the time.
I love how you looked at your watch like, oh, no, I'm almost
There we
49.
go. Yeah, I always look back. I was like, what year is it? I have to remind myself. My daughter we've been having this argument lately of my hair is gray. And I said, no, it's blonde. And she says, it's gray. It's blonde. So we've been having this long-going argument on these things. Okay, real quick, I don't have a lot to cover in the class for this chapter, so, current events. Anything on in current events?
The vice president debate.
We had the vice president debate, we had the presidential debate. What happened to the vice president debate? Did anybody like it?
Mike Pence was really good.
It was really good. Makes you almost want to vote for Mike Pence for president.
Yeah.
Yes,
The clown scare at
Oh my
Woodridge
gosh.
High School.
yes, there was.
I'm not
Where?
kidding, it was real at Woodridge.
There was one at a local school here, two sixth grade girls started it on social media. They got caught and had been suspended from the school.
Yeah, it's kind
Or I think, well, they may not have been suspended. That might have been a different story than I heard where somebody was suspended. Yes.
You know what my mom and my brother saying? They see the clown thing is not real and it's just a myth to scare people.
No,
No, it's real.
no, it's very real.
It's real. I keep
It's
telling them
1
it's real.
billion
I
percent
think it's real, but it got out of hand and turned into sort of.
Okay,
myths
some
and
people
stuff
think that
like
it's like a
real
promotion
insiders.
for that new like clown movie, what's it called?
Yours isn't.
It's not.
baloney.
What
I
clown
say
movie?
it's real.
Um,
It is real.
It,
Yeah?
it's called It.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That was like
Yeah.
from 40 years ago.
Yeah, it's like they're making it.
They're making a new one?
Okay.
And
Yeah,
you-
Stephen King. He wrote the movie It. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So,
I'm really
like,
not
this
happy.
guy,
Oh my god! The first one's a serious one.
that's
What
it.
the heck's the one in the middle? It looks so happy. What is that?
That's it.
It is?
Yeah, that's from the original Stephen King movie, It.
That's not really creepy.
So,
This is
should I
from
go now or
1950.
should I,
This is Bozo the Clown.
Oh, it's got.
From, he used to be a kids program. Are you gonna take a picture of it, scare your mom?
Yeah.
Who? What? Okay.
That's an old lady.
And
Yeah, I
I feel bad for this clown. They're sad because of all the bad promotion they're getting.
Yeah, I could look better. But like,
Halloween.
if I tried.
Bozo.
Bozo, yeah, he had a weekday morning show all the time, but that was
I'm
back
not
when I was
going out
growing
on
up.
Halloween. I'm
Yeah,
just
Halloween
staying
is pretty
inside.
interesting.
The number
I don't
one
know.
costume,
I'm pulling the all-nighter on Halloween.
the number one costume going out right now is the clown mask.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Of course.
It is like, it is,
That's so stupid.
I love the Donald Trump mask. Like
It's
it's
just
huge.
Oh my gosh, I was at the thrift store yesterday and I saw the Donald Trump mask and me and my dad started
Does it
dying
come
of
with the hair?
laughter. It was so funny.
Here,
Oh, you're
here,
hearing that.
here, this is what I did.
I wanted to.
And look.
I don't know what I'm gonna be calling me. I'm just.
Did you guys see the video of like
Oh,
Donald Trump and Hillary like in
Haha,
bar or
suckers,
something?
you have to walk
Dancing
outside.
oh my
The cold
goodness,
was
that's
falling in the
horrible.
warm house, eating my
This is what we do it though. Clown mask. There's-
Yeah, I had to put these in just for you, Karen.
Yeah, I'm sure you did.
I picked those out just for
Tara,
you.
are you eating these
You
skills?
should.
Yes,
I want to
Do
do
it.
it.
So we were watching the, well, my brother had the debate on last night,
that's too bad.
and something my brother's not. And so my sister runs in and shuts it off, and she says, Jared, I don't think this is Jared friendly. So it was funny at the time, but.
What else is happening in the news?
Hurricane Matthew.
Hurricane Matthew, a lot of destruction.
NC State game and Notre Dame played in that.
Oh, I know, wasn't that, I watched that just to see them play, that looked, I mean, I loved it. Did you see the tackle? The guy got tackled, and it was one of the tackles, the guy got tackled, and he must have slid 10 yards.
I saw a few
It was
of those.
like
Yeah, one guy
hilarious.
got pushed out, he like slid like all the way.
We used to, one of the things that growing up, we used to go and play, we had this church that had this huge field near us. And we used to go out there, especially after a rain, we would love to go out there and just play football in the mud.
Like,
Yeah.
Any sport in the rainbow is so much
It
fun.
is free.
I don't care what people say. If you play a sport in the rain, we should be
Tennis
best
is no
friends.
fun,
Nobody
Tennis
ever
is
likes
fun.
tennis. That's not even a
but,
sport.
but soccer's fun in the rain, yes.
Soccer,
Okay,
soccer.
so rain's fun, but it also contains radiation
Oh my gosh.
from Japan that is like the kind in the nuclear bomb set off.
Rain?
Rain, because the
Well,
the
there's
weather
radiation in my
radiation.
basement, I don't worry too much about it.
My basement's there's so much.
Yeah.
It's so creepy out there. I don't go down there.
It's lots of light.
The sun has radiation,
Yeah, so.
yeah, that's why you get skin cancer.
Look it up.
Where?
Like in, I think I want to say it was Hiroshima, Japan, and like
Oh, yeah, no,
nuclear plant explosions.
Yeah, it was
What?
the tsunami
That's
that
crazy.
happened in Japan there. their nuclear reactor melted down some. And it didn't explode, but it leaked some radiation.
My grandpa's actually allergic to the sun.
What?
How does she live?
That's not
I mean,
real.
He doesn't stay inside all of his life, but if
Yeah.
he's outside too long, then he'll start getting like black spots on his skin.
Oh, yeah. Like my
What?
aunt, like, I don't know what it is, but she couldn't be outside for too long, else she like breaks out.
Yeah, a number of people will get, a number of people will, if whatever medication you take, too, can also cause problems with exposure to the sun. Anything else other than, yes?
That little clown reminds me of this one ripoff in the show I watched. I don't know, it was like Binky the Clown or something like that.
Pinky the Clown.
Yeah.
My favorite clown is in the, I can't think of the name of the movie.
Oh, I have a gun above my door. I will shoot you. I'm not joking. Don't mess with me. Can I do the pictorial on the clown situation?
I guess you could do, yeah, I guess you could do that.
Walt Disney.
I feel like there would be like a ton of information.
Yeah, that's,
It's gonna work.
I'm doing that.
it
I'll
could
do
be
it
good.
too.
It's gonna work.
Can we please?
What?
So I've already started my pictorial.
Yes,
So far I have 30 slides, but it's only like 3 minutes long so far.
okay.
It's like the pictures are separate from the text.
Yeah, you thought it was due today.
Oh my god.
Oh.
Crap.
No, it's not due
So
for
it's not a go shot.
What happened?
The pictorial thing.
Yeah, you got 3 weeks to do it.
I like freaks. Don't do that.
It's on, like, it's themed Wizard of Oz, but it's not on the Wizard of Oz.
What is it called?
You
So,
that'll be you.
Anything else? Of course, the Indians are 1 game away
The
from
Redskins won.
We better win because that's big sport. We have to win.
baseball.
Yeah.
Baseball
I
is
love it.
important.
Oh, and soccer. But
That's interesting to hear.
I love baseball. Don't even get me started. I will talk for hours. So we're not.
Baseball can't be played.
I played
Excuse you.
softball.
Baseball can be played anywhere.
I played softball for 7 years.
That's what I love about TV shows.
What? You played softball for 7 years?
On broadcast.
Oh, that's.
It's like,
Yeah, it's like, who is the mysterious voice?
I'll do
Yeah, I
that.
was a child.
4 to
11, like crazy like that.
How old were you?
Play baseball.
my brother played and then he quit because he hated how he got dirty. Such a win.
I used to play on the dirt all the time. Like, I was just like,
So did I. My brothers used to make me eat dirt when I would annoy them. They'd go inside and eat dirt. Like, this were mean and I would do it. So,
Older brothers?
yeah,
explore.
yeah.
Older brothers.
We used to joke
Are
around.
you the youngest?
I am. I have 4 older brothers. So like my 2 the 2 babies.
It must be hard.
Yeah. So they would be like, go outside and eat dirt. I'd be like, okay. And I'd come back in. And one of the times I went and did it, I was like 6 years old or something. I came back in and I was like, am I black because I eat dirt? It's like, that's like this joke now.
I always thought brown cows ate Taco Bell.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought that that's how it worked.
That'd be
I
pretty
bet it
cool.
would too.
That would be.
That'd be really
That would be
That would
awesome.
be
Really?
We
awesome.
should make that happen.
It's too
We
bad.
should do that in chemistry. That's what we should do instead of what we do.
So did anybody explain to you you're not black because you ate dirt?
No, I figured that out when I was like 10.
Okay. Just
What?
make sure.
4
Yeah.
years?
And then my little cousin, he asked me like a couple years ago, he's like, why are you your color? And I was like, I just got a really bad tan one day. And he still believes it. I feel so bad for him. My cousin on my dad's side is like 8 now. Oh my gosh. It's so funny. And my uncle and aunt just started laughing like over there for dinner. And I am, but it was so
That's pretty good
So,
though.
I mean, yeah.
I like that.
Oh yeah, you're okay. I'm tired of this.
Okay,
Alright.
okay, so let's move on. This week you guys had chapter 6, yes.
I've got something intelligent to say. So I found,
I
sorry.
can comment on that. You should have made that. Don't throw those softballs out there.
I found this article that said that, what's it called? Okay, I just lost the name. That one news reporter that you, like, it starts with the letter D. I've got it right here. It's this article that, like, okay, the Drudge Report,
Oh, yeah.
they debunked this several years ago.
Oh, yeah.
It's like from Newsweek or something.
Well, they were talking that they need to have a debunking website for the debunking websites.
Oh.
Because they're finding that even some of the, like, you go to some of the websites that do the fact checking, that they get their facts wrong too. So, it's like, okay. Who can you trust in a day when anybody can post anything?
Definitely not clowns.
Definitely not clowns. Or Ronald, do you think McDonald's
I
sales are going down because of the clown
hope
scare?
so.
Yes.
I hope they.
Ronald
But guys,
McDonald.
they have good French fries. Don't be angry.
Yeah.
Ultimate, the ultimate, like,
It's a
stuff
girl
like
clown.
big
It's
burger,
It's gonna turn into so fun to be the evil clown.
I know, but
Oh,
they're
yeah.
so good, guys. No, you're chicken nugget grenade.
Yeah. Chicken nuggets contain an addictive.
Okay, so chapter 6, the Eve of War. You have the Committee of Correspondence. What did the Committee of Correspondence do? Good try.
I honestly don't remember.
So I remember them just cheating with this.
I remember
Oh,
they were gonna be
wait.
in like
Was
1
that
year.
So
They
basically, some people have a problem and they look at the Committee of Correspondence and they think, well, this was, the colonies trying to correspond with Britain, and it wasn't. It was actually founded by the radical Sam Adams, yes.
It's like, but are we doing all this year?
Yes, we will get through the entire book this year, with a couple weeks to spare.
What will we do on those extra weeks?
Watch a movie.
We will do something
I'll bring
exciting.
food. That's
Like,
what I do.
Watch stuff.
Yep.
How will we
Like,
dress up
I'll bring
for
a
Halloween?
Fine.
Yeah.
Is
Is Halloween on a Monday this year, or what?
If it is, oh my gosh.
I'll bring in my clown
Let's
mask.
find out.
Can we all dress up?
No,
It
but
is
you
on
can
Monday.
dress up, I don't care, I'm
Halloween
dressing
is
up.
coming, so-
There's no way I'm dressing up.
Yeah.
It is on.
I wanna dress as Hillary Clinton.
It's
Are you
on-
serious?
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah.
It's meant to be.
It's meant to be.
It's fate.
Wait, what? Veronica McDonald.
Don't worry, I will protect you.
I won't. I'll dress up like it.
I
Can I dress up as something to go with my project?
don't know, is that the
What
week our project is due?
Mhm.
What are you doing your project on?
Hillary Clinton.
Are you gonna dress
Are
like
you
Hillary
kidding me?
Clinton? What are you gonna do?
Are you
Are you
serious?
serious?
Are you wearing a pantsuit?
I've got one.
Orange.
I'm gonna do whatever my contracting.
There you go.
Just you wait.
Okay, so the committee, the Committee of Correspondence was, with Sam Adams, and, what he tried to do was really to educate the other colonies of some of the things that, England was doing, the Great Britain was doing that was infringing on their rights and some of the atrocities. So that, that way, you know, of course, back then they didn't have the internet. Imagine that, they didn't have the internet, so they didn't have this instant information. Also, you know, around that time you had the Boston Tea Party. And of course, we depict that by them dressing up as Indians and going out and throwing the tea in the harbor and then cleaning the deck afterwards. And Boston Harbor Teapot Tonight, so that was kind of the phrase. And that was brought about because of the Tea Act of 1773. I have a couple other sources that I wanted to use, but I wanted to give you guys a little bit better idea of what was going on. English commerce was not capitalism as we know it today. It was more what we would call mercantilism. And what that is it really was based on this idea from the ruling class back then, that it holds that a great nation needs colonies to send it its raw materials. And it cannot send these raw materials to other countries. So this is not free trade as what capitalism would be. This is a trade system within itself. And what also happens is that then the colonies buy the the finished products from the mother country later. So you have the raw materials coming out of the colonies back to the mother country creating and building the products and sending them back. It's a totally closed system. And so then the greater the empire becomes, the greater the benefit. Well, who benefits? The ruling class really is the ones that benefit, the people with money. Well, Americans were built on independence. They had to thrive on their own when they set up these colonies. They didn't rely on the mother country for much of anything here in the United States. A great mercantile empire could only be achieved with a good deal of order and control from an all-seeing, all-knowing central government that would prescribe trade and habits that deviated from the mercantilist idea. So that means that they didn't want to see innovation. Sound familiar? Sounds with what National Socialism is. Sounds a lot like what some other forms of communism is, that we would control. It's another type of controlling system that puts controls on the people. And so that's why you get this idea of British control. Why you see them enacting these acts, the Stamp Act, the Sugar Act, because what they wanted to do is they needed to reassert control over the American colonies. Why? Because the American colonies loved to trade with everybody. They didn't want to just trade with England. They wanted to trade their cotton with other countries. They wanted to trade their other products with France. And even that was one of the big things that was a huge complaint from the British, was even during the French and Indian War, that some of the American merchants were making deals with the enemy and selling them livestock or selling them other goods and profiting off of it. So one of the things that they wanted to do, when the war had ended, French and Indian War that ended, they wanted to take control over these. And one of the things that they didn't like was from America is Americans were not paying their taxes, not paying their fair share is what the Democrats would say today. They were smuggling products to other countries or smuggling products to other tariffs that they were supposed to. And they were land speculating, which means they would just go and take the land and take ownership of it. So if Americans thought that they were Englishmen, then they needed to act like Englishmen. And then Americans had to be different. And this is why British asserted more and more control. But the problem that you had is you had too many Scots, too many Irish, and of course the Puritans in that time frame. So these groups pushed for more independence. And they also, their colonial assemblies were too independent of the governor that was appointed by the king. And so that these independent colonial assemblies, like the one in Carolinas and Virginia, would pass laws or do things that would not, that the governor did not like, and which was Boston. So that the crown asserted its preeminence, it would soon have colonies. If it didn't assert its preeminence, it would have colonies in name only. With the war over, the first order of business was not business as usual, but establishing again that order. So out of this mindset, out of this thoughts, comes these, what we call the intolerable acts. The coerce, and the first one is the coercive acts. The Boston Port Act, the Massachusetts Government Act, the Act of Impartial Administration of Justice, and the Quartering Act. One of the worst things that the people didn't like were two, was the passing of, you could be tried by the Admiralty, which was the governing military body from England that was stationed in the Americas. And also the other one would be this taxation without representation, that a tax would just be imposed on the colonies. The colonies believed that no, the taxes, they could only be taxed by laws passed by their assemblies. The other thing, of course, was the Quartering Act and supporting the troops that were left in in the colonies after the war. And then, of course, there was the Quebec Act. Yes.
What's the reason for income tax?
What is the reason for income tax?
Today.
Today? What do you think? What's your thoughts?
I don't know. I mean, is it to help the government?
The whole income tax thing is quite an interesting premise. Really, what you see now today with the income tax was really passed with the idea of the government having enough money to maintain its army, maintain its roads, and keep the country progressing. What it has led to is starting with even really with Woodrow Wilson early on, is that more and more growing power. So now what you have today is you have politicians who, what do? Look at both Trump and and Hillary. Both of these what do they promise? Hillary promises that the government will be there to help. Well, where does that help come from? Bernie Sanders promised free college tuition. Where does that money come from? Today, the income tax is used, 1, to control the population, and 2, to buy votes. Those are the 2 primary purposes of the income tax. It's really about control and getting reelected. Has nothing to do with running the country.
Aren't there countries with no income tax?
Yep.
Or even states, maybe?
Florida has no income tax. Which is why, like, Tiger Woods moved to Florida from California. In fact, what was it? Phil Mickelson a couple of years ago came out and was complaining about income tax. It was, if you took the state income tax, you took the federal income tax, by the time he was, if you looked at a round of golf, it's 18 holes. The first 12 holes that he played was just to pay his taxes. The last 6 is what he played, is where he made his money. Now that's just an idea representation of 2/3 of his money went for taxes. 1/3 of his money is what he got to keep. And that's why he moved to Florida, or I don't know if he did, but Tiger encouraged him to move to Florida, and everybody in California got all upset because Tiger moved to Florida. Other people move from states that have income taxes to states that don't have income taxes, just for that purpose. That's why Florida grows. Florida gets most of its money through its sales tax. So in order for you to pay taxes, you actually have to buy something from them. So
Florida's being destroyed.
Yeah.
Gotta regrow.
That's right. But actually, I think North Carolina got more of the, North and South Carolina got more of the brunt of that storm than even Florida did. Although I think Jacksonville and all that area got pretty bad. I talked to my brother, I got a text from my brother that he said, no, everybody's safe. A little bit of damage, but not too bad. And they live in South Florida, so. But yeah. The thing is a government that can do everything for you, can control everything you do. That's the thing too with why if you're looking to go to college and you got the government saying that, oh, free college, there's going to be restrictions on what you can do and what you can't do. You look at everything. There's always strings attached to every dollar. So the First Continental Congress, it passed what we call the Declaration of American Rights. And what they were really looking at was this established, what happened is that the the Crown established this Board of Commissioners with unconstitutional powers. They didn't have the things to do. They extended jurisdictions of the courts of admiralty. That was that idea of you wouldn't be tried by your peers. You were going to be tried by you'd be tried by the leaders of the admirals. And who was that? These were all the wealthy. The nobles were the ones who were in charge of the Navy and part of that admiralty. It wasn't a jury by your peers. I think it was William Pitt, was tried by his peers. They found him not guilty. The judge and the Crown did not like it, had the jurors thrown in prison until they would convict William Pitt. They got 8 of them to say that he was guilty. They ended up with 8 more, 4 of them would never rescind, and the upper courts affirmed the right of the jurors that it had to be unanimous, which basically upheld that idea of being tried by your jurors was more important.
Wasn't the same thing happening to Jesus? Because like didn't the king find him not guilty, but everyone was threatening the king?
Yep, pretty much. Very similar, yes. So also as part of this First Continental Congress, what they put up was this Declaration of Rights, which again included that they owe the crown the same allegiance owed by the subjects born within the realm. It means that the crown had to treat them like their subjects. So they in order to have their allegiance, they needed to be treated like they were subjects of the realm. Which when you say a subject, you don't mean, that's not something, we would look at that as, well, that's bad, because we're thinking with our American, we're subject to the king. No, what they're talking about is we're people that were citizens of the crown, of the country. Colonists owed to Parliament all due subordination, meaning that as long as the Parliament did what it's supposed to, that the people would submit to their authority. Colonists possessed all rights of Englishmen, meaning no taxation without representation, trial by jury. Again, trial by jury is a right. The use of admiralty courts was abusive. That wasn't allowed. Without voting rights, Parliament could not represent the colonists. There should be no taxation without representation. Only the colonial assemblies had the right to tax the colonies, because otherwise they couldn't pay, otherwise they had no, the colonies no longer had authority over themselves and could be taxed to death. One of the things that I assert that what might break the back of our federal government is that if we had a governor that stood up and said, listen, we are passing a law in this state that the federal government no longer has the authority to come in and collect taxes directly from our citizens. They will collect, our citizens will pay taxes to the state, and then the state will give them the money that they deserve. That immediately break the back of the federal government, because what state's going to give them all of that money? No state. Every state's going to go, well, you know, we have to pay for our roads. We have to pay for this. We have to pay for that. Here's your money for defense. Rather than what happens now is, look at the school systems. All of our local school systems. Why is Common Core? I'm sure all of you have heard of Common Core, correct? Why is Common Core being allowed in the states? Because the federal government gives money to the local school districts. So what are you going to do as a local school district? You are going to adhere to what the federal government says. So that's some of those things that the federal government does. Yes?
And the teachers tend to hate Common Core. Everybody hates Common Core, but they've got to use it because of the federal government.
Correct. And some of the things that I don't like about the things that George W. Bush did as president, passing the No Child Left Behind Act, really took the power away from the teachers. The idea was that it would give power back to the parents because we'd be evaluating these teachers through tests. So now what are the teachers doing? They teach Common Core and they teach the kids how to take the test. Do they teach the kids to think? No. If I had to teach you guys to meet the Common Core standards, then I would take the test and I'd go through the test and I figure out, okay, here's what I need to teach you. And that's what the teachers do. And then the textbooks are written to manage that as well. Unfortunately, we're teaching kids not to think, we're teaching kids how to take tests. And that's why we are falling behind the rest of the world in a lot of this stuff. Were you gonna say something?
I was gonna say, like, that's, goes back to the double standard of the school, us Muslims, because we aren't allowed to pray in the Bible, they're allowed to practice their beliefs.
Correct? Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. You can see some of the things that our early founders went through are things we're dealing with today. But instead of the government being over in England, the government's in Washington, D.C. I just wonder at what point does a state like Texas go, we're done. We're done with you. We're not going to listen to this kind of control anymore. We're seceding from the union. And then you'll have a domino effect of like states like New Mexico, Utah, and some of these states that are a little bit more independent minded might follow suit as well. So then you end up with revolution, you have the Battle of Lexington and Concord. One of the things that I wanted to remind you is that this revolution is different than the French Revolution. This revolution was about pushing, the government was violating the rights of the people, and it was about establishing what their equal rights were. They were not trying to overthrow the legitimate government. In fact, they made every effort to try to follow that. Now, there were some in the organization that wanted to be independent of the crown, right from the beginning. There were others that never wanted to be independent of the crown. They were loyal subjects. And then, of course, you have the Declaration of Independence and the Patriots. Now, remember, some people think that the modern conception is that the Declaration of Independence happened before we went to war. Actually, we were at war before the Declaration of Independence. So, then of course you have the Patriots, the Loyalists, and the Tories. And we're not going to get too much into the ongoing battles. You guys can read that. I'm more getting into the concepts behind things. One thing that I did want to show you real quick, and then we'll take a break besides, oh, more clowns, is, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the movie The Patriot, but this is kind of a view of the battle scene of what a typical battle would look like. So they march. They'd march in lines and shoot at each other. You gotta be pretty stupid to march straight into somebody like that. Now remember, this type of fighting took place all the way through the Civil War.
She's just collapsing in there. That's normal.
So funny. I don't get it. What? You thought that was a girl?
No, we don't.
What?
Now, the difference between the British Army and the most armies around the world is the British Army actually practiced with real bullets. And so they were fairly accurate.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, it was brutal.
Did they really just miss out?
Okay, I rejected them 6 times.
Go back.
Cannon just took off the guy's head.
Oh, thanks.
So then what would happen typically is the U.S. would get into a battle and then they would retreat because they couldn't handle, and then the British would come in with the cavalry and wipe them out.
I wish I could have seen what I did.
It wasn't that good.
Maybe takes the honor out of the picture.
Almost takes the honor out of it.
You know, it's actually a paintball game that you play. It's called Civil War. And you
Yep.
If you have
Yep.
like 20
And this
people,
is-
You line up
and
and you
wish I
march
could have
closer
seen
to each
what I
other. You
did.
shoot, take 2 paces forward, shoot again,
I
you
do
each
that.
get 1 shot.
it's pretty fun.
Yeah, it's quite interesting.
Yeah, especially the guy that shot our head. Oh my goodness.
No, at least he died pretty quick. I've seen, go to battle, you see worse.
Slow painful death.
You know, okay, in this class, you're gonna see some things that are graphic. Reason why? And there is a real cost to freedom. There are American soldiers on foreign soil today that are dying protecting our freedoms. Now, some people would say, well, they shouldn't be over there. But watch the movie 13 Hours, where Hillary sat on her hands while we had 6 soldiers protecting a bunch of U.S. citizens for 13 hours against hundreds of ISIS terrorists in Libya. That's what Benghazi's about. You watch the movie, you won't vote for Hillary. Yes.
Okay, I had it a moment ago. What was it? Oh, so Trump tweeted something at like
Yeah.
midnight or something, and people were
3 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah, he's like, at least you know that I'll be up because people
Yep.
got on him.
Yeah, people were upset because he sent out a tweet at 3 a.m. in the morning. And he goes, at least you know when the phone call comes in, I'll be awake at 3 a.m., which was a slam on both Hillary and Obama. The night that Benghazi was going on, 6 soldiers fighting, repeatedly calling for support from the U.S. military, never received any. Didn't receive air support, did not receive gunship support, and all the while, Obama found out that President Obama had gone to bed at 5 o'clock or retired for the evening at 5 p.m.
Are you serious?
Was not available to make a decision. Hillary did not do anything. And what did they blame it on? They blamed it on a video that had stirred up the protest. It was not a protest. You watch the movie 13 Hours, which is done by, I think it was Michael Mann, who is not known for being a conservative, who tends to be more balanced though. He really ripped them apart and really gave these guys credit for what these 6 guys went through. And 4 people died in that. And I really think Hillary, because of that, is one of the reasons why I'm not a huge Trump fan, but I will be voting for Trump, because we can't let Hillary be in there making those kinds of decisions. And some people will say, well, Trump will be making worse decisions. I don't necessarily agree.
What? That is.
Well,
We
don't know.
People.
All we know is about Hillary, we know she makes bad decisions. We don't necessarily know about Trump because he hasn't been in Trump. What? Yes. We're definitely voting the least.
I mean, okay,
But as much as, the thing is, a lot of Christians put their support in George W. Bush, and he did not turn out to be that great of a president either on many things. So,
What?
Alright, I gotta go.
And it was, my mom thought it was great.
Nope.
So there's this theory about like the guy who his head getting shot off. There's this theory that somebody stays alive for 7 seconds after their head's removed. Of course, nobody's ever
What?
Well,
like gone there.
anybody volunteer for that one?
No.